Salut, ici AzurielX et de retour sur Beginner's Guide, chapitre 9. Starboard, je meurs aussi. Sous les bails. Donc je sais pas si vous vous rappelez, mais bon, ce jeu est un peu spécial car il est composé de plusieurs jeux créés par un type qui s'appelle Coda. Et a priori, aucun de ces jeux n'est terminé, mais laisse quand même une sorte de message assez étrange.
See, like, this is it. The whole game. And there's nothing that's particularly interesting about it. You just walk to the end of a hallway. Except, for some reason, Coda gets really fixated on this prison that has all of this modern furniture. And I don't know why, but he decides he needs to revisit this prison. He's gonna start over, use the same assets, turn it into something else. Okay, cool. Here's version 2.
Donc en fait, ce jeu est basé sur le thème de la prison dans lequel on serait bloqué. Et a priori, c'est tout ce qu'on a fait. Ok, là, pour le mettre au centre de la place. Un réfrigérateur. Quoi sur les murs? Un steak vivant. Ouais. C'est le concept de steak que je peux parce que... Alors, je pense qu'on devrait apporter un peu de lumière. Des bobines Tesla, c'est toujours cool. C'est pas l'idée que je me fais d'une bobine Tesla. Une table. Qu'est-ce qu'on s'en fout de la table? J'ai une table. Ouais. Bienvenue dans Home Makeover.
There's a bit more to this one, but still it's not really communicating anything. It's kind of just weird for weirdness' sake. So okay, he throws it out and starts over. This time he comes at the prison idea from a different direction.
Encore une prison. Toujours le même niveau a priori. D'après ce que j'ai compris, on a eu les deux premières versions, mais on en a une troisième.
And of course, now the table is gone and you can't begin the chain of events to escape. Here's a version where there are no bars, but you can't actually get to the well. And then a version where the inside of the prison is the outside and the outside is the inside. Let me just blink you real quick through a few more of these. I mean, he really unloaded on this prison idea. There's nearly a dozen of them. Personally, I think it's awful to watch this, to see a person basically unraveling through their work. And for what? Like, at what point do you just go, maybe there are game ideas other than this prison that I could be working on? But Coda doesn't have that voice telling you to stop, that particular mechanism of defense against yourself. Without it, you just spiral. And so he keeps going and going and going and going and going, and then he hits on something. And he likes it. And that's it. He's done. He stops making prisons. This is the very last version of the prison game that he created, and the reason I think it works is that the prison is not actually in it.
Donc en fait, tout ce que vous venez de voir, ce sont des suites de niveaux totalement identiques, mais sous différents angles. Ouais. Moins. La cabine téléphonique du Docteur Who. qui a fait ça est quand même très sombre. Allô. Moi. Non, je suis bon.
It's a conversation. And so this is what Coda wants, is to be able to talk to someone, to share what's on his mind, and to get some good advice from someone who knows. But the irony is that even in this scenario, you're still talking to yourself. You know, all of these games so far are Coda talking to himself.
Donc en fait, le créateur du jeu aurait utilisé cette conversation pour se parler à lui-même. Du moins, j'ai l'impression. Après, le dialogue, c'est plutôt une fille. Non, j'ai pas dit. Non, tu seras pas libre, mais tu seras mieux. Allez, balance. Je pense un peu.
I can see why he considers this a fitting conclusion to the prison games. After all of the obsession and frustration, just to be told by someone you can trust that things are going to be okay. Wouldn't that be nice? So what would it look like if Coda wanted to make a game about talking to someone other than himself?
C'était spécial quand même, ce petit discours.
To me, this environment is meant to represent Coda's puzzle, with the two doors on either side and a dark transitional space between.
Non, ce bruit. En retard. Boxman.
You'll notice that the quality of the art is a step up from previous games, including this new and improved chat system, which he started using from this point on. From here on out, he begins putting much more effort into the visual polish of his work, and this particular game took 2 months to create as a result. Mm-hmm.
Le ménage soit aussi facile. 32 secondes. J'essaye d'être sympa, ça m'arrive pas souvent. Attention, tour de magie. Clac.
After the intense set of prison games, this house cleaning level almost feels like cleansing. It's the moment after a particularly difficult or traumatic experience where you just need to let it sit and digest inside of you, and eventually cohere into something meaningful. I know that Coda really liked this game. Of all of his work, actually, this was the only one that he called me up to ask me to come over and look at it. This was during a period of a few months where he was like grossly happy all the time, just walked around with a constant smile on his face.
D'accord, a priori, celui qui a fait cette année Parable, c'est le celle qui a fait ce jeu-là. On discutait longtemps à propos de ce jeu. Je n'ai pas écouté. Encore? C'est quoi cette bibliothèque de malade?
I'm glad he made this. I'm glad he found some peace.
Réponse?
But, of course, it can't last. The music stops, your companion is gone, it's time to leave. The door at the top of the hill is now open as well. Again, you can't stay in the dark space for too long. You just can't. You have to keep moving. It's how you stay alive.
Enfin, d'après le narrateur, la porte d'en haut, celle-là, a disparu. Mais il n'y a pas que ça qui a disparu. Les murs, le type, tout ça. Sympa. C'était Ménage Simulator 2000. Prochaine édition en 2016. Wow.
Which is the whole point of the puzzle doors, right? That sooner or later you have to pick up and move. I really thought that was the point of it.
Vous voulez mon avis? Avec un problème psychiatrique assez important.
This one gets a bit goofy.
J'étais pas là, moi.
About halfway through the game, the perspective shifts. And you play as the teacher. And suddenly, you discover that your teacher is just as bigoted and afraid as you are. Oh, and also you can move around the classroom now.
Enfin, on joue le rôle du prof.
I fell pretty hard for this one. I feel like it's one of the most relatable experiences that you can have. To assume that some other person is perfect and totally fulfilled in every way, and completely miss all of the little flaws that make them painfully human. I think about this game a lot these days.
D'accord. Et la fin du monde, elle est typique, là. Ça fait un discours pour comment être parfait. Sympa. Il y a moins une personne qui est restée pour écouter dire des conneries. C'est pas mal, quoi. Je connais ces...
This one took a lot longer than all the others for Coda to make. It was 4 months between this and the last one. That's twice as long as it took him to make any other game before this, and it's not like it's particularly complex, so I remember I found that a little strange at the time.
Donc celui-ci de niveau a été fait à peu près pendant 4 mois. Enfin, d'après ce que le narrateur vient de dire. Voyons voir. Oh. Où est la salle de bain? Ah, j'ai dit le premier truc. Chercher, on est... Cool. Maintenant je sais ce que c'est que des nazes flippantes. Oh. Encore ce truc. Ok.
The game ends with this eerie premonition of what's going to happen next in Coda's life. The solution to social anxiety, to fears of having to perform and having to chase success, the answer for Coda is to withdraw, to hide himself away. Which is what leads to scenarios like the stairs that slowed you down several games ago, where it just becomes harder and harder to access Coda's inner landscape because he keeps retreating. He just keeps backing away from possible connections to anyone other than himself. And to be honest, I didn't consider it very healthy when I first played this game. You know, it looked to me like he was trying to justify the idea of just disconnecting yourself from the world. And that wasn't what I wanted for him or for his games. Because I feel like a lot of his games are inviting me to connect with this person, to bring him closer.
Ok, donc ça,
But what can you do? After this, Coda went off and took another 5 months to make a new game.
Ok, juste pour la petite info, ça c'était soi-disant un rendez-vous que Coda, le créateur de ces jeux, aurait eu. Ok.
You should probably open your eyes if you haven't already. It's pretty much impossible to solve otherwise. And there is a solution, by the way.
D'accord. C'est assez compliqué quand on ne connaît pas vraiment la personne de résoudre une énigme. Mais a priori, la personne qui crée ce jeu a un petit...
Like I said, I was getting concerned. First off, he's never been this explicit in his work about exactly what he's thinking. So where's that coming from? But then even weirder, his work has potentially stopped being an outlet for him. Not like he's having trouble iterating on ideas, but he literally just can't think of new ideas anymore. And in person, he was being a lot more distant than usual. Like, you know how sometimes a person will just deflect anything that you say in order to keep themselves disconnected all the time? It was that kind of thing. Here was the point in my relationship with Coda where I really started to wonder if he needed my help in some way.
Ok, ça devient de plus en plus triste. Pas mal.
His games are going to get more desperate from here on out. After this game, it's almost 6 months before he finishes something new.
D'après ce que j'ai compris, le créateur de ces jeux a passé une phase assez terrible dans sa vie. Et ces jeux sont de plus en plus sombres et mettent plus de temps à sortir. Voyons voir ce niveau, et je pense qu'on arrêtera après celui-là. Un arbre, ouais.
If the last game featured Coda talking explicitly about his creative frustrations, this one turns it up to 11. Now, put yourself in my shoes playing this. Here's a friend whose work is exhibiting signs of struggle, frustration, anxiety, depression, even. And yet still he keeps making games. He keeps throwing himself into the grinder even when he clearly doesn't have the energy for it anymore. Why? What is it for? Because from my perspective at the time and just what I knew of him, this was a result of how isolated he was. He was in his own little bubble, just sitting at his computer all day, not really showing these games to anyone, not releasing them onto the internet, and so he didn't have anyone outside of himself to connect with. He had no outlet to ground himself on. You can't talk yourself out of loneliness. It doesn't work that way. You can't be the one writing both the questions and the answers. Then there's no movement. Then there's no circulation. If all of your anxieties are being channeled into your work, then if the work ever fails, you have no backup and you're just going to crash.
Je suis censé répondre quoi? Okay.
Seeing this game at the time that he made it looked really unhealthy to me. I was watching him do this to himself, and I hated it. I hated seeing him so trapped. It's like, video games are not worth this amount of suffering. This is someone I really cared about, and I used to get so much joy out of seeing him create. For him to suddenly become angry and frustrated like this, it was the worst thing for me. I don't know. This is what I felt at the time. I don't know how else to explain it. I wanted it to stop more than anything. I had never felt so rotten. I needed more than I had ever needed anything for this to stop. But it didn't stop.
Okay.
After finishing this one, Coda takes another 7 months and comes up with a new game.
Faudrait qu'on m'explique c'est quoi le but de ce jeu, quoi. Vraiment. Bon, sur ce chargement, je pense qu'on va se quitter. Parce que là, j'ai besoin d'aller voir un psy juste après ça. Donc on se retrouve plus tard pour la suite, si je suis encore en vie. Et je vous dis à la prochaine. Ciao.